it's NoirNerd, and I wanted to do another reaction video. So I'll just dive straight into it. Basically, I'm just going to watch videos for the first time to do with technology, programming, and all that, and just react to them basically. So this one's come up a few times. I've not watched it. It's by Gyasi Linje. I don't know. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The harsh reality of being a software engineer. So this should be quite interesting because it's sort of like a blunt truth video. So let's see what he says, and I'll just pause intermittently. Pretty nice office. I like this light thing here. I mean, that sort of puts my messy, chaotic, artistic space into. It's really interesting actually. You know, I've noticed with a lot of developers, they seem to have very clean environments, whereas mine is pure chaos. It's like I've got paint tubes here, I've got paintings, there's cups everywhere. Like, I mean, I've got a few. I'll probably do a video about my own environment at some point in the future, but like I have like some posters up and things like. But yeah, it's just interesting how some developers seem to have like a very clean environment. And then some of us like tend to be quite, you know, chaotic, like sort of man cave.
You know, being a software engineer, it isn't all glitz and glamour. What's up everyone, Gyasi here, and I really wanted to make this video because I see this like trend where people only really talk about the positive aspects of the tech industry and being.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, like, of course, I mean, it's definitely not glamour and glitz anyway. I think you'd have to be quite naive to really even think that. To be honest, it's hard work. I mean, it's like engineering, isn't it? It's knowledge work. It's stressful. I mean, there's a lot of good aspects to it. I mean, I think we're very privileged in a way if you become an engineer or programmer, because you're basically just doing problem solving and design, and it's like a cross-disciplinary sort of field. So it's interesting. It's always interesting. Doesn't mean it's easy, or you know, it's not like.
Being a software engineer, I myself definitely am guilty of that. I have at least probably a dozen videos where I only really talk about the positive aspects of being a software engineer, which can kind of make the industry and the job itself seem a bit unrealistic. Aspiring software engineers should have.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's better than going down a mine and like with a pickaxe though for fucking 24, I don't know, like 10 hours a day.
A deeper understanding of what the reality is like for software developers, opposed to just these expectations of a six-figure salary and free coffee and snacks at work and being able to bring your dog to work. For one, as someone who desired all of those things, I realized that those are major perks, but there are some not so healthy things that come along with landing that dream FANG job.
I'm predicting he's gonna say long hours. That's the main thing I'm predicting he's gonna say is long hours, lots of hard work, high expectations, having to keep up with the latest trends and the latest, you know, sort of ways of doing things, working with others. That's what I predict he's going to say, but it'll be interesting what he says.
Job or really high paying salary. So what are some of those negative things that come along with being in the tech industry as a software engineer working for a competitive company? The first thing that I can think of is burnout. So what causes burnout? Developers are.
Absolutely, I mean, that's a huge issue in the IT industry. I've been interested to what his take on it is, because I mean, basically what causes that essentially is the time is long hours and hard work and unreasonable sort of hours. Often, sometimes I mean, it's fair enough if you have to do a bit of overtime. Sometimes some employers can be very bit over the top of it.
Are always working harder to become more efficient, and as you climb the ladder, your expectations obviously grow larger. You have more meetings, but also have the same amount of programming, which can get overwhelming quickly. For one, your backlog seems like it's a never-ending growing list of bugs and refinement and UI UX work and technical debt that your developer team never gets to because because most teams are typically like undermanned. Like there's usually like a need for more developers, which is another issue in tech. Also, success gets pretty addicting, especially with all these videos talking about how people are making, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the way I sort of think of it is like, I'm not in programming to make like, oh, I don't want to become Steve Jobs, I want to become Bill Gates, or I want to make $1 billion. No, I don't care about any of that stuff. It's just a creative career that can be hard for sure, but it has at least, it's sort of, you know, in the ideal world, actually, to be honest, like I'd love to just paint and write and stuff and just do that as a career, to be honest. But it's not realistic. Like you have to try and find a place within the capitalist economy, really, to be honest. So programming is like a nice happy medium, but I don't know.
$120,000 right out of college. People are making $200,000 in their 20s.
I think too many people are motivated by money, really, to be honest. I don't think it should be. I mean, obviously you need money, you need to buy stuff. The stuff in itself isn't that important, really. You just need to, you know.
20s, it makes you want to like make that amount of money as fast as you can. So you jump from company to company and you're working on your skill sets at work, obviously, and then outside of work, you're programming and coding all the time, not building healthy sleep habits. So that's one example of how programming or just the tech industry in general can cause stress and overload, which leads to burnout. That's an example of burnout while you're working in a job as a software engineer. Let's talk about the burnout that people experience before they even start their first day at work. When I was preparing for technical interviews, I seldomly had time for really anything else, which really created this like poor quality of life. I was not only programming for my regular job, which was quite difficult at times and demanding, but I also was studying data structures and algorithms, basically a student after 5 p.m., which is a totally different beast. Like your actual software engineering job is significantly different than like what you're studying and preparing for, which is another reason why I don't understand the purpose of some of these technical interviews.
I completely agree with him on this. I think I know there's this a lot of the big tech companies do it now, where you have to learn data structures, algorithms, how to invert a binary tree and whatever. But you never use any of that shit hardly ever in a job, to be honest. It's just fucking pointless.
They don't reflect what your reality is as a developer. Programming for a company takes creativity and collaboration, along with having the ability to Google stuff and go on Stack Overflow to debug your code or figure out how to create whatever thing that needs to be created. Whereas in an interview, they can ask you any question. So I was studying algorithms and data structures. I was doing at least 2 medium leak code questions a day, along with watching Stanford lectures on data structures and algorithms. And I even went as far as doing virtual peer interviews through Pramp, which I definitely recommend. That definitely helped me a ton. And I also got really good objective feedback from people who don't know me. The point that I'm making is applying to a million jobs, because let's just be honest, like LinkedIn at this point is just a resume stack, along with preparing.
It's true. I hardly ever use LinkedIn. I occasionally post something on there, but it's a pointless posturing social media.
For technical interviews, interviewing, and then starting the job can make a lot of people feel exhausted. I know for one, that after I finished my interviews, I was like, I don't think I ever want to do a technical interview again.
Yeah, I hate them. I had one a few months ago, and it was just, I mean, there's so many aspects to it. You had to answer these, I had to do like multiple choice questions about freaking 50 of these things. And then I had to do something else, and then I had some like code snippet stuff. Then I had to solve an actual problem at the end of it. I think I had 2 hours to do it, so it's a fair amount of time, but at the same time, it's like everyone's got gaps in their knowledge. Everyone has. There is no programmer who has sort of like absolute full knowledge of everything to do with programming. It's probably impossible. You'd have to be like a super genius or something to even be at that level, or severely autistic. Sorry, that sounded terrible, but you know what I mean. Like Probably not. Well, maybe. I mean, probably if you were like in a certain place in the autistic spectrum, you could be really like, I don't know, amazing at programming. But I don't know.
For my
That probably sounds offensive. I didn't mean any offense.
technical interviews, it was during the holidays. So literally during New Year's Eve, I celebrated with my wife and her family for like a couple minutes when the ball dropped. And then after that, I was on the iPad studying for the technical interview that I had like in the next 5 or 6 days. It's such a horrible feeling when you get declined from a company where you made it to like the final round of interviews. And that happened to me a couple times. Now, obviously, I'm really grateful to even have those opportunities, but you can feel really defeated when you like do 3, 4, 5 rounds of interviews and then you don't get the job. And then you don't really get a clear reason for why you didn't get your job. Oh, you just need to work on data structures more or algorithms more. But that's such a vague statement, and that really is predicated on who's interviewing you at the time and how nitpicky they're being. There's this other thing in tech that can be really annoying, which is that double standard. For one, there's that, whole gotta be able to prep for the interview and study for it, like a ACT or SAT, that no other industry really has to deal with. And then there's that double standard that, oh, you should really be, eat, code, and sleeping. Like that should be your lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a terrible philosophy. There's far too much of that in the sort of hustle world online and social media and everything, Twitter especially. You see it. Eat, sleep, and code. Eat, sleep, code, repeat. I mean, sometimes, yeah, you get into that cycle of like, really working hard, really working long, hardly. But then it's just long term. It's not a good strategy because it's the gateway to burnout. Basically, is where you're working overtime like every day, working the weekends. I mean, the occasional bit of weekend work is fine, but you have to be. I mean, I'm quite strict with it now, to be honest. Like the last contract I worked from 9:30 to 6. They had me for that time. That was fine, absolutely fine. I was more than happy to work, do the work I needed to do. But after 6 o'clock, I'm going to be less available. There might be occasional times where I'd work a little bit later, like 6, half 6, or maybe getting towards 6:45. But that would be a one-off, and I would never do that every day. You have to be very strict in terms of like setting boundaries and with your employer in a certain respect. I mean, it's a bit of give and take, really. But if you're being, if your employer's demanding that you work long hours every day, pretty much, and the weekends, then to be honest, like start looking somewhere else because that's just a disaster waiting to happen.
It can feel that way, especially when you're a junior developer, because see, when you're a junior developer, your job really is to just learn the code base like as well as anyone and knock out as many pull requests as possible. It seems like to be considered a successful developer, you need to not only open and close a bunch of PRs in a sprint, but also need to code outside of work and be up to speed with all the latest technology. And see, that's probably one of the more frustrating things when it comes to the tech industry, especially if you're someone like myself who has other interests outside of coding. I honestly feel like I can't keep up. Like, I like to work out. I like to play basketball.
Yeah, no, it's definitely important to have a work-life balance, and you will go mad if you don't. You will become insane. You'll become obsessive about. I mean, a certain amount of that with programming is not bad. I think on a certain level to be sort of obsessive about it. But there is a balance, and he's very correct here with saying that you need to find that balance for yourself, because if you burn out, otherwise, basically.
Basketball, I like to, go on walks with my wife and do photography and videography. I kind of have a YouTube thing going on that takes a lot of time. And sometimes I feel like I am not doing enough as a developer. I hear my coworkers talk about all this new technology that they have experience with outside of work and the things that they're doing outside of work. And it makes me feel like I'm slacking. When in reality, I'm not, because what other industry do people expect you to do the same kind of work that you do at work at home for fun? Only industry I could think of is athletics, right? You have practice in your games, but then you're also expected to work out and do other things to get better. And technically programming is like that because it is a skill set. And it does seem like a lot of your value is based on how well of a developer you are, despite the fact that that company told you that they didn't hire you because you weren't a culture fit. And that's the irony of it all. We all know that yes, programming is a very competitive field, especially landing a really good job, but there's a lot of in-demand jobs, and there are way more jobs than there are programmers. But there's that feeling that you get where you feel like you're in jeopardy of potentially losing your job or looked down upon if you feel like you're not the best developer on your team. I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome that goes on within the tech community, especially amongst developers, and a lot of comparing, which is really unhealthy because the reality is if you have programming skill sets and you're working for a company as a developer, you are very valuable. I know that.
Yeah, he's got a good point there. It's sort of more about sort of instead of. I think one of the worst things that programmers can have is a huge ego, really, like just being arrogant. And these people are not good to work with. They're not. They are annoying to work with. I can't say actually that I've actually really worked with a really arrogant, annoying sort of programmer, to be honest. I've been quite lucky, I think, in some respects. Like one of the first programmers I worked with was an old guy, very experienced, very knowledgeable. Could write very good code, complex code in a way that I couldn't always understand because I was a junior developer at the time. But he was very helpful. He would try. I mean, he obviously couldn't be so hands-on all the time, but it's just a startup I was working for. But he did his best to try and steer me in the right direction. Like with articles or just helpful things which would help me find my way. And if you're with someone who's got this sort of, they control their domain. It's a bit like how you get people in authority sometimes who have a little smidgen of power, and they just you basically manipulate. I don't know, manipulate it, but they take advantage of that.
Some people eat, sleep, code, and they're fine with that. But some of us, we enjoy technology and we like.
Thing is with that, if you eat, sleep, and code though, and you sort of alluded to this earlier, you do need time to exercise and go out in nature and everything, because if you eat, sleep, and code, like literally you're going to become a fat Jabba the Hutt. I freely admit, like, I'm overweight at the minute. I want to do something about it. I don't want to just stay. I've got a big belly. Like, I'm overweight. I'm obese. Like, to be honest, and it's not healthy. This is going to be not interpreted well by some people, but I don't think it's healthy to be fat. I don't think it's. I mean, fair enough if you feel like I feel alright about it. I don't feel too bad about it, but at the same time, it's not the ideal. It's not like. It's not. I don't think we should pretend that it's a good thing. It's a neutral thing, really, in some respects. But realistically, if you're just programming all the time, day and night, not doing much else, eating your noodles or your pizza or whatever, it's going to eventually have a little bit of a knock-on effect on your health. So yeah, it's important to have
programming. We need to rethink how many hours we should be programming, especially for like our mental health, because programmers are interacting with computers all the time, all day, and we need that human interaction. So I definitely think we need to reevaluate that 40 hours a week whole thing for everybody, but definitely for developers. Anyways, that's my rant on why you maybe should not become a developer, or really the harsh realities of being a software engineer. And my motivation behind this video isn't to discourage you, but I recently saw how difficult it was for my wife and her peers throughout their coding boot camp, and I can only imagine how excited they were in the beginning. Oh, I'm about to become this software engineer, make all this money, which is definitely a reality. But going through their coding boot camp, a lot of people realize that, hey, this really isn't for me. And I think I just was thinking about like all the opportunities and the money, and not thinking about the stress of critical thinking all the time. That concludes this video. I hope you all
Yeah, he's got a good point. I could sort of agree, to be honest. I think everyone should have a crack at programming. I think everybody should always have a go at it. Some people are naturally attuned to the sort of thinking that is useful for programming, basically, sort of the analytical minded, creative minded. It's not just about analytical sort of logic, right, left brain sort of thinking. I think right brain sort of thinking is very useful as well as a codist, because it's sort of basically combining both of those two poles of the mind, if you will. I mean, obviously, like the traditional distinction would be that, you know, sort of more logical, analytical sided would go to back end, and the more like creative sided would go to front end, which is reductive on some level. But you know, I think basically, yeah, it's not easy. I don't know. Yeah, he's right. I don't think everyone could do it. Not everybody has the. Well, first you need to be really. You need to get excited by it on some level, like problem solving. Not everybody's excited by problem solving. Some people are more like they like to do things with their hands. You know, they're more physical, and then people have different learning styles as well. So, some people learn better by seeing. Some people learn better by doing. Some people learn better by writing, reading. So, there's all that in there as well. I know I'm rambling too much.
Enjoyed it. Comment down below some of your thoughts on this topic. I'm curious to see what you all think. I love engaging with you all through the comment section. And as always, have a wonderful, blessed rest of your week. I'll see you all soon.
That was a good video. I like that. I want to subscribe to Gyasi Linje. I've not heard of this guy before, actually, so that's good. I don't know how to pronounce the name quite. It's Gyasi Linje, I think. That was a very interesting video. I thought it was pretty good. Probably one of the better software engineer sort of vlogs I've seen recently. I'll leave it at that. I think it's probably been what 20 minutes now I've talked, so I'll just yeah, go and like his video, subscribe to his channel. Do that here if you want as well. I'm doing these reaction videos now, but I'm going to start getting some tutorials up and running relatively soon in the next few days, so watch out for that. I'm a NoirNerd. Have a good day. Dobry dzień. And yeah, have a good one.